Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Well, the weather sure changed last night. It went from warm to very cool. It was 6 degrees this morning when I got up, and it sure felt very, very cold. Yesterday I worked on my table, putting a coat of varnish on it. I'll show you that. I am going to put a coat of varnish on this new table I have. So here I go, and this is my homemade varnish. It's my violin varnish. It's a beautiful color. Smells just beautiful. So this varnish, this violin varnish I made, is colored. It has a bit of an amber color to it, but it's perfectly transparent, so it really shows up, any grain in the wood, but it gives it a nice amber color. And it darkens with age as the varnish oxidizes. It darkens to more of a reddish amber color. Right now it's kind of a golden color. And this is a very traditional varnish made from washed linseed oil and pine resin. If you ever want to know how to make your own varnish, you can find it online. Just type in violin varnish and you'll see how to make the finest violin varnish fit for a Stradivarius. So there's what it's looking like. It's looking very nice. I'm getting the odd brush hair in here because this brush isn't a really super quality brush. But yeah, there's the difference. And this varnish, I wouldn't say it's waterproof. It's more water resistant. So there are ingredients you can add to this varnish that make it more waterproof if you want, or you can just use a traditional lacquer finish or urethane or some waterproof finish if you want it totally waterproof. So I did give this table a light sanding before I applied the varnish, just to get any surface defects off it. I left, all the character, the dark stains on the wood and that. And there's a few areas here that have had the veneer kind of chipped away. This is a solid wood table, but it does have a veneer on the top. Okay, I've got the top covered with varnish. I'm just dry brushing it to get any kind of level it, and it will self-level. It takes quite a while for this varnish to dry. It needs the UV light from the sun. But it creates a beautiful finish. Okay, now I've got to go around the edges. You can see in the light how it's quite an amber varnish. If you put a couple of coats on it, it turns quite dark. But again, it's always transparent. Here's a look at the table now, glowing in the sunshine. So you can see how the varnish really brings out the wood, gives it a nice honey kind of amber color. Yeah, it's really, really nice. My table is slowly drying. It's staying fairly bug-free. I had to pick a few insects off it, but it's doing all right. So you may notice out here that there's a lot of empty shelves, and that is because it is going to get quite cool tonight. I don't think there's a risk of frost, but just to be on the safe side, I moved all my tropicals into the greenhouses. In my poly house, I filled up all the bench space looking quite full. In the glass greenhouse here, it is very full. So there's the floor. I can step in, turn the heat on. But yeah, it's pretty full in here. Both the lower level and the upper level. So they should be nice and warm tonight. I've also moved some trees into the plant room here. These are my most sensitive trees. They don't like going below about 12 degrees Celsius, maybe 15 degrees Celsius. They die if they get down, close to freezing, even though they never freeze. So I've got my kapok, my baobabs, powder puff, and my water jasmine. It's getting a little warmer out now. The high today is 11 degrees Celsius, so not real warm. I'll bring the trees back out from the greenhouse onto the benches and begin today's work. I've got all the trees moved out of the greenhouse here. That sure warmed me up. So today I'm going to be working on the FrankenFicus, a medium leaf size ficus benjamina. I'm going to prune up the FrankenFicus today. You can see there's a lot of strong growth on the top of the tree. And if I bring it indoors, that growth on the top of the tree will just continue to grow and the bottom branches will get weaker. So today I'm going to remove a lot of this upper growth, balancing the vigor of the tree. I'm also going to be doing a lot of branch selection. There's a lot of new shoots and new possibilities for branches. So I'll be pruning for the future structure of the tree. This tree never had a lot of foliage coming out the front, but now you can see it's filling out in the front part. It was always kind of flat on the front face. So it's filling out quite nicely. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the way it grew over the summer. Of course, I could use another couple of months to really get it going, but summer is coming to an end. The tree has to go inside soon. Ficus benjamina is more of a tropical tree. They can't take the cold like the Ficus microcarpa can, so it prefers to be kept kind of around 15 degrees Celsius or above in the winter. So I'll keep this in the upper plant room, the one that's heated and kept warm. I'm going to begin the pruning in the upper canopy, pruning for direction so everything's fanning outwards nicely. So I have a lot of branches that are growing back in towards the center of the tree that I'll be pruning away, opening up the canopy to get light down to the lower branches. So here I go. I'll start on this branch coming right out the front. And you can see this one is kind of going vertical. And I think it would look better pruning it off and then letting some of these other branches extend out over that area. So my first big cut, here I go. Taking that off. There's another vertical shoot here I can take off to thin it out. I can remove some of the older leaves. That'll help get light down to the lower part of the tree and the inner part of the canopy. I could even prune this upper part off. And I think I should. So you can see how that branch is flattened out now. There's also a vertical part to this branch. If you look in here, I'll show you a close-up of it. So in here, you can see this branch is more horizontal, and then there's a vertical part here I can remove. And there's one growing on the inside I can also remove there, just to clean it all out. All right, here I go. Big cut coming up here. Taking that off. That inner one can come off. And then I have a dead branch here I can remove. And some upward growth here I can remove. So now in this area, you can see the branches here. I've really thinned it out, and you can see how light can get down now. Before it was just dense and no light could get to these lower branches, but thinning it out, keeping leaves on the tips of all the branches at all times. It has just started to rain outside now. I'm glad I'm in here in the greenhouse where it's warm and dry. I treat the Ficus benjaminas like you would a coniferous tree, always leaving green on the tips of the branches to draw the sap flow into the branch. If you prune them back to bare branches with no leaves, there's a good chance they could die off and maybe send out a new branch somewhere else. So it's a good idea to keep green leaves on your Ficus benjaminas at all times. I'll continue on with the pruning. I'm going to prune this branch here. So at the base here I have two branches growing from one spot, and the one kind of goes vertical up here, and it's probably the better branch even though it's more vertical. The one out front kind of is in line with the trunk, so it kind of blocks the trunk. And if I imagine that getting thicker, I don't think it's that desirable. On the other hand, it does fill out the front, which is something I was working on. So I need to pick which one of these branches I want to keep. And that is a tough, tough decision. I know I had that problem before deciding. I pruned off all the branches that are coming out to the left-hand side. I do have a new branch down lower here that's in a nice position that I think will be the leader coming out here. So I'm going to take this one off that's coming out the front. It's just not in a good position. So here I go. There's a little new one here I'll take off first, and then I'll come in and prune this one off. Big cut coming up. Here I go. That branch comes off, so you can see it opens up your view of the trunk, and I have this branch to develop, which is a much nicer position. So that one that's going vertical will also get removed. I'm going to leave a stub. I don't want this one to die back, so I'll cut it off short to here, leaving quite a bit on this branch. So there goes that part. Again, really opening up the canopy. There's a few dead leaves here I'll just pick out. Yeah, so this is my branch I'm going to develop. It's not in line with the trunk. It'll fill this space out nicely. It'll just take a few years. There's a few new shoots in here that I'm going to prune away. Now in the upper structure here, I have a branch here it's not flowing outwards. I've got my two trunk lines here, and it's kind of crossing in towards the other trunk line. So I'm going to remove that one. Another big cut coming up. Here I go. So this is how you improve your branch structure. There's a dead bit here I'll take off. By keeping the branches that you like, that are going a good direction, and pruning away the ones that aren't so good. I think if you look at this area, the branch divides here, and I think I just keep the one to the left and prune away that whole branch off the right hand side. So pretty major cut here, but I think it'll be good for the future. So here I go, like that, taking out that whole thick part of that trunk line. And I will put some rubber cement on that cut because it's a pretty big cut. Normally I don't seal up ficus, but with a cut this size it's not going to hurt. I think this tree is going to look quite different at the end of the day, quite sparse. So I'm thinning it all out, picking my best branches. There's a lot going on here. I've got this one that grows back in towards the tree. I'm going to remove that one. And maybe even the one above it. So here I go. Big cut. Taking that out. And maybe even this one, keeping this part. I think that would be a wise choice. I could keep the one branch. Yeah, I think I'll keep the one branch here. Take this part off. So again, that really opens up that side of the tree, letting a lot of light in there. You can start to see the upright structure now. Now on this side of the tree, you can see I have a branch coming out nicely, and then there's a vertical part here. So I'm going to remove that vertical part. It's done its job. This one's thickened up, so here I go. That comes off. Big cut. You can see it opens up space for the canopy to grow out and these to grow out wider also. Now on this branch here, you can see the leader is growing back in towards the center of the tree. And I need to kind of correct that. I left a leader here, so I could just prune that inward growth off and then let this develop more, and I think I'll do that because these branches are still a little weak and I need them to strengthen up. So I'm just going to take this growth off here like that, opening that up so these can grow outwards. Now on this side of the tree, I've got this branch, which is a little awkward looking. I have a better branch behind it. I think I've got to take that one off. It's kind of like two branches growing up like this. And yeah, I think that just goes too vertical, that one. So it's going to come off. So here I go, big cut coming up again. Taking that off. So you can see the lower branches, they're not really strong in growth, and that's because the growth's all been up top. So hopefully this work will kind of give more light to these lower branches and invigorate them so they grow a bit more. Okay, so I've got to continue the pruning. I'm going to step back and have a look at the tree and just see what it's looking like. All right, here's a look at the tree now. So it's certainly opened up. And there's some branches that it's getting a nice flow to it. It never had good flow before. I'm trying to improve that all the time to make a graceful looking ficus tree. I can see back in here there's a vertical branch that I need to remove. It's shooting straight up. So let's do that next. So right in back here, I've got this branch that's going vertical. And it doesn't look good. It doesn't flow outwards when viewed from the front. So I either need to shorten it or remove it. And I'm just trying to see where it comes from. Okay, so I've got a smaller branch coming out the back, so I can just take the top off. And again, I'm going to leave quite a stub because I don't want that lower branch to die. So here I go. That one's coming right out. There's another branch here growing up vertically, and I have a nice one that's fanning out. So I can take off this vertical part of it. And I will. Here I go. Taking that off. Opening up light to these branches. Having everything fanning outwards nicely. My goal is to make a graceful looking tree. I think that's, part of the beauty of a tree is graceful flowing branches. I've got a branch in here, a new one that's growing straight towards the other branch. I'll take that out. Now, on this branch I have there's 3 branches coming from one spot. So I need to pick which one I'm keeping and what I'm getting rid of. This one here is certainly not very good looking. There's not much taper or movement. It just sort of gently curves upwards. It does contribute to the width of the tree, which is nice. But, you know, you want the width down lower and then a umbrella-shaped canopy, and this is out of the profile. It's too high. So I think it's got to go or be pruned back, one of the two. I'll start, let me show you this area. So in this area I have the 3 branches there growing from one spot. So I definitely can remove this back one. It crosses underneath the other branches. So I'll leave me with 2 and maybe just prune the other one shorter. All right, I'll take that one that's kind of an awkward location out. There it goes. And then I need to prune this one back. And I can go quite far back. There's leaves all the way back on the tree. So I think to here. Taking that whole tip off. Now I've got to make sure that branch gets light. So I've got one kind of growing over top of it here. And again, I've got to pick what I want going on in this area. This branch kind of comes out front and it's not the best location. Ideally, I'd like to remove it. It doesn't flow at all. It kind of, the trunk line comes up and then it turns 90 degrees. I've got to remove it. It's just not, I can't even like reduce it back to here. It's still very awkward looking. And it grows over top of this branch. So it's coming right off. Big cut. That's gone. I'm out front once again having a look at the tree. So you can see I've got a lot of separation in these areas, which doesn't look so good, but that's going to fill in eventually as these branches grow up, and it'll fill in those spaces. I'm stepping back, having a look at the tree, and this branch here, the sort of vertical one, I think it needs to be shortened. It's reaching up too far. It makes the tree too symmetrical. I've got sort of the branch on this side and it's echoed by the one on this side, and yeah, I think it needs the branches on this side to be lower. So I'm thinking of taking the top off that branch. I think it needs it. So here I go. Like that. Taking that stub off the top. Shortening that branch. There's another good leader here. So I think the branch will flow nicely. It could even be reduced further. I think I need to go further. I do have a new branch leader right here that I could take it back to and take that whole top off. I think it needs it. It's just too, I've got my central trunk and then the 2 branches each side, and I think this one would look better as a lower branch. So here I go. This is an even bigger cut. So I need to find where I'm cutting and come in and do this very carefully. So I'm going to keep the one branch here. Alright, here I go. Big cut coming up. Oh, off it goes. A lot of branches with it. Let's have a look from the distance now and see if hopefully I've done the right thing. I'm looking at the tree from the front now, and I think that's a big improvement, getting rid of that vertical one on the one side of the tree. It makes it look a little more asymmetrical. It's not so monotonous, the design of the tree. Now the canopy's looking very tall on it, isn't it? I think I should try and reduce that. All right, let's see if I can reduce the height of the canopy somewhat. So that's certainly opened up the apex now. It's brought it down in height a little bit. Not, 100%, but better. Here's a look at the tree from the front. It's getting a little triangular shaped, but that's going to fill out. Those bottom branches are getting really, really good light now, so they'll fill out and create more of an umbrella shape eventually, rather than sort of more of a triangular shape. And a lot of these bottom branches, as they thicken up, will be sorted out also. They're a little confusing at the moment. But it's certainly making progress, this tree. Yeah, and I may be able to reduce the top of the canopy down once I get some new shoots, maybe to this sort of level, and it'll all fill out. Eventually creating an umbrella-shaped canopy, not this sort of rounded triangular shape. It's a long-term goal. I think it'll really make it look like an ancient ficus. But yeah, not much more to do today. So I will rotate it around so you can see it from all angles. All right, I'm rotating it around now. So here's the front, the current front anyway. Coming around to the right-hand side. Around to the back of the tree. Coming around to the left-hand side. And back to the good old front. Here is a look at what I pruned off today. So a lot of branches, some thick ones. Yeah, a lot of structural pruning today. But I think the structure is better. It's improved. The tree is a lot sparser. I mean, it looks quite empty at the moment, but I'm pruning for the future, and that's what you have to do. I've collected thousands of photos of giant mature ficus from the internet, and I study them quite regularly to see, what a mature ficus looks like, its branch structure, everything. And I have a vision for this tree to make it look like an ancient, old, mature ficus. And the pruning I did today is another step in the right direction. It has a long way to go, this tree, before it's, a really grand, fantastic tree. But every time I do this type of pruning, it's a step closer to the final kind of branch structure and goals for the tree. I gave my FrankenFicus, my Ficus benjamina, quite a pruning today. Visually, it doesn't look very nice. It's kind of down to the bare minimum once again, but the branch structure is definitely improved. It'll look good in the future. So I'm looking forward to it filling out once again and repeating this process. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.